Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 204 of a year of change and the beginning of week 30 for us. Today we're going to do our standard weigh-in, check-in, all the other ins. So do your weigh-in, see where you stand. This week we tried to cut back a little bit on our sugars, sort of aiming for that 10% goal. But I should probably clarify a couple things. But first, before I do that, I will tell you up front, I have not made much progress this week, primarily because of yesterday. I knew that yesterday was going to be a bad day where I was going to go over, which I certainly did. But, yeah, sugar-wise, the drinks have put me far, far over where I need to be. But even when I take those out, I still was over a little bit, or higher than I was last week. And I'm pretty sure the 20 jujubes in the middle of the week probably is what did me in. Because that's another 20 teaspoons. So there's, what, almost 3 days worth? Or, well, 2.5 days worth of sugar. So, yeah, I did not make much progress this week. So I do apologize. I knew this was coming. But, and of course, I think probably mainly because of yesterday as well, didn't make much progress in my weight. Went backwards. I gained 0.6 pounds. So, which overall, I figure if I didn't do what I did yesterday, probably would have made some progress. So, it's one of those things, though, that I'll talk about this more tomorrow, because I really want to focus on what we're doing on Sundays. But it's one of those things where you can sort of feel yourself slipping, so you got to catch yourself in the meantime. So, that's what I'm doing today. But the main thing for today that I want to do is we were looking at our sugar intake, and just like last week, sort of add up all your days, find out how many grams of sugar are in there, and then divide by 4, and that'll give you the teaspoons, and then you can figure out, what you're supposed to be doing. As I say, for me, did not make the 10%, obviously, not by a long shot. But I don't have a reason for it, or I don't have an excuse for it, I should say. I do have a reason for it, because I ate poorly. There you go. But this week I want to sort of talk about the difference in just regular sugars and, for lack of a better term, well, I was going to say bad sugars, but that's not really good because it's all pretty much bad. We'll say added sugar for the difference. That a lot of the stuff that we have in our diet right now, because we said this last week as well, that 4 grams or 8 grams of sugar in my cereal compared to 16 grams in an apple. Even though the apple has more sugar, it's probably better that I have that. It's going to be fewer calories. There's going to be fiber in there, which is going to sort of help slowly release everything. I guess the main thing that we're talking about when we talk about, and this isn't, I know, because in my head I'm thinking, is this just a way to say, oh, well, technically I didn't go over. I did go over. But when we're looking at sugar in our diet, the thing that we really need to be paying attention to isn't so much sugar that we get from foods, like raw foods, like fruits and vegetables and meat that we're preparing, things like that, homemade foods, stuff like that, because we have a lot more control over what sugar we can actually put into something. I think the main thing that we need to look at when we're looking at our sugar intake is what's classified as added sugar. And basically the best way to look at this is regular sugar that is in your diet, like dietary sugar, we'll call it that for lack of a better term because I can't think of what it is. So regular sugar that's okay, it's just stuff that you would naturally find in food, mainly in fruits and vegetables. There is going to be some in meat and things like that. Pork is actually sweeter than beef, so I would imagine there's some sugar in there as well. And anytime that you brown something, that's because part of it is the sugars that are in there. Anyway, or acids, sugary acids? I don't know. Anyway, it's something in there that makes it good. But the main thing that we're looking at to sort of, more than anything, to cut back on is the added sugar. And that's pretty much anything that you would find in processed foods. Fizzy drinks, snacks, cakes, cookies, in my case, frozen pizza, anything that's really processed, that like frozen juice is a big one because they dump in a whole lot of sugar in there, or even if it's not frozen, if it's just, as they say, freshly squeezed, there's still a tremendous amount of sugar in there. Anything that's really processed, that's the added sugar that we're trying to avoid, not entirely, but as much as we can realistically. Now, as I say, this is sort of in my head. I'm thinking, is this an excuse? You can say, well, technically I didn't. It was just added sugar that no. The added sugar that I had in there, even if I took all that away, if I took away the drinks that I had last night, if I took away the jujubes, if I took away every added sugar snacky thing, it was still higher. So I haven't exactly looked into exactly where it was, but it was primarily Friday and Saturday that did me in. The rest of the week wasn't too bad. I did go a bit over on one day during the week, but that was probably the day that I had the jujubes. So, which I really, this is why I say I feel like I'm sort of slipping. I really need to get back to where, and I feel like I keep saying this all the time, because in my head I'm thinking, I've seen so many people say this before, and they'll say, well, I'm going to try this instead, because, you know, I don't feel that this is working, and it's weird, because in my head I'm thinking, are you making an excuse? Are you just basically setting yourself up for failure for this? And I've come so far, and I don't want to give that up, and then I look back and go, yeah, you haven't really made much progress. Are you just making excuses for the fact that you're not where you need to be? So I got to figure that one out on my own. I don't know. It's one of those things that, you know, we are very, very, very good at lying to ourselves. And as long as we're aware of that, and I can look into it and go, okay, is this... And as far as I'm concerned, it's me going, I'm just a little too lax in what I've been doing. And I keep saying, oh, I need to get back, which is, of course, bringing back memories of, you know, a year ago going, gotta lose weight, and 5 years ago, gotta lose weight, and 20 years ago, gotta lose weight. So... I mean, it's one of those things that I don't want to get into that pattern again. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. Anyway, it's a topic for tomorrow. I keep sort of bleeding into it, but it's related. So there we go. But the added sugar that we're trying to avoid is primarily in processed stuff, and we've cut a lot of that out. I couldn't even imagine. I didn't go back as far as I really should have. I should be going back 6 months or a year to find out exactly how much sugar I was taking in 6 months ago. Which I haven't done yet. Probably should. Maybe I'll do that for next week. That's what I'll do for you. But looking at the amount of added sugar that's in our diet, that's much easier for us to control than just the regular sugar that we're getting from fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. If you had to pick between the two, I mean, if we could, we would just simply not track sugars from regular sources, from fruit and vegetables and meat and what else am I thinking of? Grain and bread and stuff like that. Those are the things that, well, I mean, technically, you know what? No, we would add bread in there. Because unless you're getting it from an actual, well, even a bakery, but even if you're actually getting it just from the store, there's a tremendous amount of sugar in bread. Mainly because they need to sort of keep all the, when they add in all the preservatives and everything else, just part of the processing of it, they've added a tremendous amount of sugar in there because it still has to be palatable, because everyone's still going, well, I want whole wheat, but I want it to taste like white bread. So anyway, so we won't include bread in there. We'll say from fruits and vegetables and for raw unprocessed meat. If we could take stuff like that and say, good enough, that stuff we won't track and we're just going to pay attention to the other sugars, then that would be a little bit easier. But unfortunately, MyFitnessPal doesn't work that way. And we can't really go in and start tweaking things around. So that's why we sort of looked at the overall sugar content. And that's why I'm not saying, okay, well, we need to bring it down to 7 teaspoons. Or 9 teaspoons, what is it? 9 for men and 6 for women. Which is weird because I'm imagining I know women that are much taller than I am. And I know men that are much shorter than I am. So I would assume it has something to do with your body type and your size and your height and your weight and all the other good stuff. So we're going to average it out to 7.5-ish. We'll say 7, just to be safe. Just to cover everybody. So 7 teaspoons per day of added sugar is how much they're saying that you should limit yourself to. And this is usually from like the Heart and Stroke Foundation or the American Heart Association, things like that. If you try going and looking up how much sugar is safe, the National Sugar Institute, or I think it's just the Sugar Institute, has their own page saying, here's the recommendation. No, just ignore it. I didn't even go into it. It might be exactly the same as the American Heart Association, but something like that. If it's the person who's producing the product is saying this is what your recommended intake should be, a little dubious there. So go up, take a look. It'll show you what you need to do. But it's the added sugar that we can really control. Cutting back on processed foods, cutting back on candy and cookies and cakes and all the other stuff. Even salty snacks have a lot of sugar in them. And it's just when we're buying something, just paying attention to how much sugar is in there, things like that. And again, just like I said last week, it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to be able to hit it every single week. I mean, this week, obviously, first week out of the gate, and I didn't do it, which is really disappointing, and I am sorry. But I mean, hopefully there are some of you out there that have done this and you're like, oh, I didn't get it done. Oh, that's okay. It's all right. I have a bit of leeway. For those of you that actually were able to cut back by that 10%, that is a really, really substantial accomplishment. Because, I mean, that means that even during this 6-month period where we've been eating healthier, we've been cutting out processed foods and things like that, and, you know, curbing our snacks and everything else, that you're still able to control the amount of intake that you have. And again, it's not to say, well, then I'm just going to stop eating all the apples I've been eating. You know, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of sugar in there, but sort of offset it by the source, really. There's a lot of fiber in fruit when you're eating it. So, I mean, there is a lot of sugar in there, but there's fiber in there as well. That helps it just release a little bit slower, I think. So it's not the same thing as downing a gallon of sugar and then just sitting around doing nothing. We've also been exercising, which I didn't do yesterday. So that didn't help either. That didn't offset anything. So, I mean, it's just to sort of take everything in and look at it from a proper perspective. And we are never going to be able to cut out sugar 100%. It's simply impossible. In order to do that, you need to stop eating altogether, which no one really recommends. So for what we're trying to do, though, it's really a matter of just another step towards looking at what we're eating and making smart choices, not binging, not overeating, having something once in a while, like once every couple of months during Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, like we talked about yesterday. You know you're going to go over, you know you're going to throw your week at a whack, but in general, we're still staying on course. I don't really have any positive thing to say about yesterday, other than the fact that I really don't want to turn it into a 3-day binge. So that's going to get curbed a little bit. But yeah, for this week, we don't really have any changes. Again, for those of us that have not made it, it's to cut back 10% in our sugars. Not the 10% that I got this week, because that would be extremely easy to do. Just in case you're wondering, the number, it is, did I write it down? I did. Last week, when I was looking at it, I had 527 grams of sugar in total over 7 days. This week, 741. Shit. Yeah, so that's why I say, even if I took away all the added sugar I put in, I've still had a lot more of just sugar in my food. And I think the main culprits for that, as I say, Friday and Saturday were the main ones for that, was drinking and the pizza. Two things which I really shouldn't be having, but have not had them in a very, very, very long time. So I thought, good enough, I'll do that. But even if I take those out, I was still slightly over. I was at, well, I didn't, no. Actually, no, when I took those out, I was 507, I think. So I was still below where I was the week before, but I wasn't at my goal. I didn't hit that target of 10% difference. So either way, I'm in there with you. So we shall try again. So this week, I need to try to get my sugar down to where it needs to be. It'll be a little bit easier because I'm not going to say, oh, well, I have Thanksgiving for an excuse. So, but we shall look at that. In the meantime, though, take a look at what you've been doing so far this week. And if you have gone down, then whatever you're doing is working. And it is a little difficult with this, as I say, because if you're eating, you know, a lot more in the way of fruits and vegetables, your sugar is going to go up. But take that into account when you're looking at it and saying, you know what, I didn't make my 10%, but, and even if it went up, but you say, but I've doubled the amount of fruit and vegetables that I'm eating. Well, then you're fine. Then that's much better than cutting back on the sugar. It's really the added sugar that we're looking at. Things that are, you know, dumped into pop and, you know, chocolatey drinks and cereals and all sorts of stuff. Anything that's really processed, it's that sugar that they dump in there. That's what we're trying to get down. So if you're replacing it with fruits and vegetables, even though it's, you know, much, much higher in sugar, you're still on the right track. Keep doing that. It's much better to get, you know, 30 grams of sugar from fruit than it is to get 10 grams of sugar from that, it's like a sugary cereal. It's because you're getting so much more out of it. I didn't have that luxury this week. Mine was just useless sugar. So I don't really have that excuse to say, well, it's okay because I had healthy foods. I did throughout the week and then buggered everything up. But, yeah, we're not going to revisit that until tomorrow. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave this video here. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. In the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.